Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we getting on? Welcome to a brand new camp. So, today we are in a location that I didn't even know existed until very recently, so I thought it'd be interesting to have a look around this place. So let's jump in, shall we? Okay, so yeah, I was looking for somewhere to build something entirely different as it happens the other day, and that build didn't really work out, but I did find this location which I somehow missed up until now, and it's pretty cool. There's a couple of cool potential spots to build that are basically right next to each other here. So we'll have a look at where we are on the map, but yeah, it's an interesting thing that I've not managed to come across this place. So there we are, here's my scrappy compound, which is the build we've gone for. See this little bee here on the map in the Savage Divide? Basically, that's where we are. There is kind of a meadow here that has got a couple of different spots in it that are quite cool to build in. And yeah, the game kind of sends you around this spot, and the lie of the terrain in the area kind of pushes you away from it as well, so it's kind of easy to miss this. So, quite an interesting spot that I've only just stumbled across. There are a couple of drawbacks to it, the biggest one being that there's always enemies spawning here, so every time you load in, you are going to have to do something about that. But it is quite a sweet spot. As I say, there's a couple of places. There's this spot here, there's just over behind my camp that you can build, and the sort of behind where I am now. That are all interesting little locations with their own unique stuff to them. So this particular spot is kind of on 2 levels, and it looked flatter than it turned out to be honest. But it's come out quite nicely. I thought we'd use a couple of little prefabs and fortify the spot up and do a relatively, I suppose, conventional fortified homestead type thing. It's come out quite nicely. Working with the slope was a bit awkward. I definitely had to kind of mix and match and sort of pick building pieces for the walls in particular that were going to work well with the slope and then sort of accommodate that. But it's worked quite well. So we've got this cliff over here on the right, and I use the term very, very loosely. It kind of steps up this big bit of rock, so working around that was awkward. And a similar thing at the back as well, because the edges of these sort of rocks tend to be kind of awkward to place stuff on. I had a little bit of patience and careful positioning and working around of things, and it came out quite well. Let's have a little look inside. So get that closed up. Yeah, usual mishmash of stuff there. I put a couple of turrets around and some guard posts just because this place, as I say, there's always enemies spawning, usually just sort of over behind where the seedy shed is up top there. And it does cause a few issues. It's not ideal at all, so, well, the enemy spawns aren't. Otherwise, the spot's quite cool. I do quite like it. So I've got a few plants out here, a few crops as well, because they're just kind of handy to have, and it dresses it up quite nicely. We've got kind of, as I said before, 2 levels to this camp. Sort of the main area up top and this sort of entranceway down here, so I decided to fence it off. Doing that was a bit awkward because of the slope. A lot of things thought, oh, it's floating, but these basic fences actually work quite well when I manually put them in. And it divides the 2 halves off quite nicely, so we'll swing up top. You can see along the top of the sort of, again, using the term loosely, cliff there. I put a line of fences and stuff that's basically improvised, but the idea was to keep any of the enemies that spawn up that way from either just standing up there and shooting down so easily, or from just dropping off there and into the camp. And it seems to be doing the job so far. I've had a few more rats and things spawn inside the camp, but otherwise it's been good. So, seedy shed in the corner on this side, put a couple of foundations up against it just to get easier access to it, and it provides a little space for putting a few other bits and pieces, as we can see. Got a few bits of scrap down there ready to break down and use to reinforce power armor with. And tuck my symptomatic in because, yeah, there wasn't really a better place for it than that. And it really does need to be on something flat, otherwise it looks weird, so on the foundations it went. Let's have a little look in the seedy shed, turn this place into my shop. It's there's not a lot of room in here. You can cram a surprisingly large amount in, but it's good for a shop because, yeah, you can kind of make use of the fact there's not much space and you don't really need so much. Loads of decoration around my vendors there on the table, on with a mixture of stuff, Blue Ridge mannequin at the back, and a load of the stuff from the new Nuka-Cola update, and a couple of Christmas bits and pieces as well, just to dress all this up with. It's quite nice. Got somewhere to wait if you're queuing up for the vendors, and got the ammo box and a stash box as well, in case anybody happens to need to drop something in their stash after they've visited the shop. A few extra bits and pieces. We've got a doorman on the corner there, just in case. Effectively, anyway. close up and head back down. So we've got the scrap box in the corner there as well, so if anybody needs to drop anything in their storage after using the vendors, they've got plenty of options there. So this top area, I kind of wanted to mix sort of the home area and a bit of a farm, so we've got a few crops around. Sort of open area could really do with a bit more grass, but unfortunately it did bulldoze and you can't put it back, so just what it is. Threw a bit of a lean-to together in this gap here, because I had the space, put it on a bit of an angle to make it interesting, because I didn't really have anywhere else to cram those chemistry and brewing stations in, so figured I'd build a little kind of shelter for that where the fumes and stuff can escape, so it seemed like a good idea. So out here it is. Added a few more crops around to dress up the trailer home there. I do like this thing, although I wouldn't mind a few colour variations on it, but it's definitely one of the more practical prefabs we've had. Places nice and easily, it's got good size inside it, easy to decorate, easy to work with, it's cool. And it looks suitably scrappy and wasteland, so that's cool as well. Loads of bits and pieces on the outside to dress it up. Some window bars there. I used a couple of the responders signs from the Atomic Shop, the plywood signs, to board up the window on the front here. And I used the Haunted House window boards, the double set, to board up the window on the end here, as they kind of jump back into the gap quite nicely, so that went quite well. It's a fairly usual trick of mine when I use this thing, and it closes up an otherwise very, very open window. So I needed something in the gap there, and I didn't want a small chain link, so I've locked a gate in there just to create a bit of variety in the wall. But out here we've got the last few little bits and pieces that I couldn't find a better home for with this camp, so I've got the encampment bridge there with a toilet and a shower and a decon arch here, as well as I wanted to squeeze the stuff in, but as I say, finding somewhere to put it was a bit challenging, so I thought we'll extend this wall just around the back of the trailer a little bit, create a little bit of space out here and squeeze everything in quite nicely. So yeah, I thought this ground was a lot flatter than it was when I started out, and you can really see it at this end of the trailer. I would not normally have gone for the thing being this high up on this end. Obviously it's not floating because of the cinder blocks under it, but it's a bit weird. On the other hand, it works okay, and it does look sort of improvised, so that's fine. Let's have a little look inside, shall we? CD shed door on this one, and then I put the laser grid on the other one, just on the CD shed itself, rather, just to mix things up a little bit, because I don't really like the door that comes with this trailer. It's a bit bland. And there we go. Crafting area here on the right. Tons of extra decoration on here. I should mention, by the way, with all this decoration, I have hit the build limit. It's right up to it. Can't squeeze another item in at the moment. So, yeah, quite happy with how this decoration came out. My idea here was, one of the things I wanted to do was spread out the crafting areas a bit. Partly because there's only so much space. Partly because I really wanted to try and use as much of the camp space as possible, so spreading out the camp areas, the crafting areas rather, around the camp, kind of encourages you to move around and go to different spots within the camp rather than just running to the same space all the time, so this should do that quite nicely. Put a couple of those water machines in there, just because it's now occasionally useful for me to have purified water, so it's quite handy. Use the merge glitch to put the sink and the cooking station in there, and the new Nuka-Cola display goes quite nicely with that, and it does a nice effective job of hiding the pipes that come out the side of this cooking station, which are actually sticking out the side of the stash box I've merged it into there. However, a flamethrower destroyed all of that quite nicely. Put the display in and then repair it, and it conceals it quite nicely. Flamethrower there too, just to allow me to tuck those chairs in a bit, because there's not a lot of room around the table here. And I went kind of scrappy with the wall decor in here. I actually used the PTS pennants for once, which I don't generally do because they're a bit large, but I thought for a change I would. There's my little sleeping area. Got our ammo box in here, or one of them. And loads of other bits and pieces and decorations and plushies around here, just tucked into the corner. Quite like this. You can probably hear the Molrat generator that's on the roof of this trailer home as well, which is the fusion core equivalent. The one that puts out 100 power, because I needed the extra power for various bits and pieces that I was putting into the camp, so due to a lack of anywhere to put that wasn't going to have it floating or be in the way, I put it up on the roof there. And we'll see, we do get super mutants wandering by this area quite regularly, so who knows, maybe it'll get shot at, but maybe it'll be alright. But it is up and out of the way, so that's always cool. Yeah, I like this. It's not exactly cozy, but it's comfortable enough, especially if you're living in the wasteland. Not too shabby. I don't figure you got much more than 1 or 2 people living here, but probably 1, as there's only 1 bed. But it does the job quite nicely. I do like it. And the cliff edge there will keep the wind off if it comes from that direction anyway. Yeah, lots of different heights and angles in this one, and nice and scrappy build. It works with the terrain and the environment quite nicely, and I do like how it came out. As I say, sort of either side of where I built here, sort of east and west of it, there is a couple of other spots that you could potentially build on as well that are reasonably flat and have some interesting characteristics, so quite a cool little location. But there we go, just a quick easy build. It's kind of in my wheelhouse, but it's a fun one, this one. I do hope you liked having a little look around this. If you did, please do consider dropping subs and likes. I do very much appreciate it. Down below the video, we've got social media links, merch store, channel memberships, all that good stuff. If you're interested in supporting that channel that way, it really helps out, so I massively appreciate that too. And if you want to get the chance to see this sort of in person, I will be live streaming Fallout on Tuesday and Thursday, as I usually do, as well as streaming something new next week, because we finished the Callisto Protocol, so on to something brand new. But for now, I'll say thank you very much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you all very, very soon.